Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samha Sambuddhassa. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, the topic of our discussion and our meditation session today is taking into account all the meditations that have been taught by the Buddha, the Brahma Vihara Bhavanas, the Kasina Bhavanas, the Aloka Sanya Bhavana, all these different 40 in all these different type of bhavanas, how as a preparatory stage to vipassana, how it aids the practice. Now, let us take a few bhavanas that we all practice that are a part of our maybe daily or monthly or weekly routines. Now, let us think about it. Now, last week, we spoke about the Indriya Bhavana. The Indriyas, isn't it? Right, the Indriyas. Chandra, අපිට කියන්න බලන්න Chandra මේ ඉන්ද්‍රිය ධර්මයන් මොනවද කියලා? Can't hear you, Chandra.
Yeah, कोई විදිය චක්කු ඉන්ද්‍රිය, සෝත ඉන්ද්‍රිය, ඒවා තමයි තියෙන ඒ ඉන්ද්‍රිය. එතකොට තව ඉන්ද්‍රිය තියෙනවා සද්ධා විරිය සති සමාධි ප්‍රඥා.
Shraddha,
විරිය
Sati,
සමාධි ප්‍රඥා
and
ප්‍රඥා.
Panya. හරි. දැන් මේ ඉන්ද්‍රිය පහ තමයි අපි ගිය සතියේ සාකච්ඡා කරේ අපේ භාවනා පන්තියට. හරි. ශ්‍රද්ධා ඉන්ද්‍රිය, විරිය ඉන්ද්‍රිය, සති ඉන්ද්‍රිය, සමාධි ඉන්ද්‍රිය, ප්‍රඥා ඉන්ද්‍රිය. මෙම පංච ඉන්ද්‍රියන් මෙතන ඉන්නවද මේ සිංහල බැරි කෙනෙක්? නෑනේ. හරි. මෙම ඉන්ද්‍රිය ධර්ම පහ තමයි මාර්ග ඵලයන් ලැබුවට පස්සේ so these 5 indriyas, Shraddha, which is faith, Virya, effort, Sati, mindfulness or awareness, Samadhi, concentration, and Prajna, discernment. I'm using the word discernment over the word wisdom because wisdom is a noun. Discernment is a verb. So prajna here, it cannot be still. Prajna is never still. Right? Prajna is always breaking into things, always going deeper, always understanding. Right? So how do we understand this? How do we know that prajna is never still? Because when we take the Buddha's wisdom, which is known as Sabbhanyuta Jnana. Sabbhanyuta means omniscient knowledge is a knowledge where the Buddha is able to know everything. All, everything. And there is a question within the commentaries which addresses the wisdom of the Buddha and asks, does the Buddha always have Sabbhanyuta Jnana in his mind, working within the present? That is answered by the commentaries to say, no, the Buddha does not have wisdom working within the mind all the time. However, whenever the Buddha adverts to something, whether it be a conventional truth or whether it be a ultimate reality, the Buddha is able to penetrate into the truth of what is Sabbhamnita Jnana. So the ability to penetrate into the truth. Now, we too, when we think about the Dhamma, someone asks us a question, and then our mind goes on a route of trying to understand or trying to answer that question or deduce an answer to that question when we think about it. Isn't that right, everyone? So, Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna is approached in two ways. What are the two? One, Samatha, and two, Vipassana. Now we know that the core of Buddhist practice is not the Samatha, but the Vipassana. Samatha existed long before the Buddha came to be, right? Samatha, Vipassana. When it comes to Vipassana, it is clear that Vipassana can only be practiced when the meditator is able to break down the Ganasanya of Nama and Rupa, meaning breaking through the front of Sammuti and realizing the deeper intrinsic nature of mind and matter, right? In order to achieve this position, in order to achieve this state, we have the samatha practices, right? We have the samatha practices. Now, some meditators or some practitioners do not go along the lines of samatha and vipassana, right? But they go along the lines of, let us say, they start with the Brahma Vihara Dhammas, which is metta, mudita, karuna, upekha. Metta is the practice of loving kindness. Karuna is sympathetic joy. Mudita, upekha, mudita, compassion. Upekha, equanimity. Now, let us take, for our class today, right? Let us take, this is building on to what we discussed last week, which is the 5 indriyas and how the 5 indriyas are to be practiced towards the present object. Is that clear, everyone? That is what we discussed last time, how Shraddha, faith, has to arise towards the present object of meditation or present object at hand, even at this very moment. Through which instinct, through which element, through which nature am I teaching, right? Am I teaching to gloat about my own knowledge? Am I teaching to gloat about what I have accomplished? Am I teaching through that negative connotation of ego and conceit? Or am I teaching with Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, and Prajna? If one is able to teach, if a Dhamma teacher is able to teach through these elements, that is when the Dhamma is pure. That is when the Dhamma is pure. Pure to the receiver, pure to the person who is preaching or teaching as well. Now, let us take metta. Let us take metta, loving kindness, right? To the person who does not speak Sinhala, right? If you do not understand any of the Pali, do pop me a message or let me know, right? Metta, which is loving kindness, right? Which is loving kindness. What is the Chaitasika of metta?
Dosa.
Adosa, right? The Chaitasika, the mental factor of metta is adosa, right? Is adosa. Adosa is non-harm. Non-harm. right? Now, when we take metta, there are 4 persons that we practice metta towards. Is my writing clear? Can you see it? Yeah, it's clear. Okay. When we take metta, or when we practice metta rather, we have adosa, non-harm. This adosa, what is the object of metta? What is Hiranti? What is the object of metta? What do you think is the object of metta?
A person.
Yes, right? Who is this person? Is it a human? Is it an animal? Is it a tree? Is it an animal?
It could be anybody. It could be me, self, or the others.
It could be self or the others. Now, when it comes to metta, one of the poignant factors of metta is the object of metta has to be an animate object, a living object,
Yeah.
right? A living object. Now, what are the 4 persons when we develop metta towards samadhi, right? Now, metta can be just developed as a quality of the mind, having loving kindness towards persons, having loving kindness within, being able to have loving kindness towards persons in comfortable situations and in uncomfortable situations. In order to do this, metta can be practiced as a singular practice on its own, or metta can be developed through samadhi, subsequently to jhana, or jhana is absorption. Now look, metta to samadhi. Now we have one indriya here. Do you see that? You can develop loving kindness meditation up onto samadhi, and if you continue along the samadhi, it will end up, the samadhi will mature to such an extent that you will be completely absorbed in the metta, which is called a jhana, or an absorption, right? Or an absorption. Now, to understand this better, I'm just going to remove the jhana because that is not the topic of the class today, right? Metta onto samadhi can be cultivated, right? When it comes to this metta, we cultivate metta as taught by the Buddha. To cultivate samadhi, we have to focus, we have to categorize the persons that we spread or radiate metta towards, and that is categorized in 4 ways there, right? 4 ways. What is that? What is the first person?
Self.
That is actually before, right? So one self, right? One self comes first as a preparatory stage to these 4, right? So the first one, after you have or develop one metta towards oneself meaning the mind and the body, right? One's mind and body. The first person that we cultivate metta towards, or first type of person that we cultivate metta towards, is
Yourself.
a person,
Somebody you love quite a lot.
somebody that you love quite a lot, a person who is dear,
Dear to you.
right? A person who is dear, right? But this person who is dear needs to be a person who you're dear to them, but be careful of not allowing the metta to become a hindrance where lust comes into play, right? Lust comes into play. So actually, the safest place to start is not the dear person, but a respected person, isn't it, Mala? Dear and respected, a teacher. Now, for example, respected. right? A person that is respected. This respected person, even if you do not know them personally, actually, if you don't know them personally, is better, because when we know people personally, you know they are good and bad. Some are able to put the bad aside and just focus on the good. If your mind is not that restless, you can put the bad aside and focus on the good. But if your mind is restless, when you're focusing on the good, the bad can come out of the person, right? Hence, you select a person who is respected, right? Second is a person who is dear. Same story, right? Same story. The dear person, you have to select a person who is dear to you. Now, let us say, at the moment, let us say a parent, and the parent is at this time, let us say, ailing of an illness, right? Ailing of an illness. And you're, as a child, you're sitting down in meditation with complete trust in the practice, and you're radiating metta, loving kindness, sharing those beautiful vibrations with the person, with your beloved mother or father who is ailing, and wishing their mind and body well, right? Now, at a time like that, right, especially when a person is ill, terminally ill, suffering, right, then at times like that, it is somewhat, I find it somewhat easier to radiate metta towards a dear person. Why? Because the illness or the suffering that they're going through trumps everything else, isn't it? Right? Even if it is an enemy who has not done us good, and if that enemy is going through something massively tragic in one's life, we put everything aside and we might give a phone call. If a person close to that person has died, a mother or a father has passed away, we would put everything aside and we would go for the funeral, maybe, right? Things like that, right? So a dear person, we must make sure that whilst we are having metta, which is adosa, right? Exactly that is the element, non-harm. Non-harm. No intention of harm should come when you are taking the respected person as an object, a dear person as an object, right? What is the third type of person that we take? A person who is respected, a person who is dear. The third person is a person who is unknown, right? The person who is not personally known to you. This could be the guy who makes your coffee in your favorite coffee shop. This could be the person who bags your groceries, or the person who works at the petrol shed where you go to put petrol into your car, or diesel or gas or whatever it is that you use, right? A person, this could be a person that you often, when you go into town or in your neighborhood, someone that you meet, you don't know the person. This is a person who is not within your personal circle, and you radiate metta to this person who has no connection to your life, other than the fact that you know that this person lives in your neighborhood, or you often see this person. Exactly, everyone. A person who is not personally connected to you. Hare, a person who is not personally connected to you. The fourth is a person who is considered, using the word enemy is quite strong, isn't it? So I'm just going to say a person who is disliked, right? AKA, considered a person who wishes you not very good thoughts, right? Now you look at this, everyone. Through this manner, when you complete this, you go into samadhi, right? If you have a very restless mind, you might have to do all four. But if you don't have a very restless mind, if you are a person who has been in Dhamma, in such an authentic manner where You have really put aside your qualms and quarrels, right? And you put all of that aside and you put it into, we are in this human existence, that Dhamma element working in your mind. If our minds work in that manner, it is not necessary that, you don't have to go through all four, right? But for a powerful samadhi to arise through metta bhavana, we have to go through these four, right? Now look at this, everyone. Okay. Now this is where the indriya comes in. Now up until this point, do you have any questions? Anyone?
Bhante, this when somebody do it, does it towards the directions like north, east, like that, the 10 directions, and then still you can get the same effect. Can they get it?
So the Mona Sutreda Eka me Chandra Singalu ne
I can't remember.
Uttarima, yes. So the different directions, the meditation, the metta bhavana that you do in different directions is a general metta bhavana practice. It does not take you to jhana, right?
All right. Yeah.
Because remember, within the mind, at one moment, you can only have one object, because one consciousness takes one object, right? When you are doing, let us say, all beings north of me, may they all be well and happy. We are not capable of taking each being within who falls or is in the north, to the north of us as object. For samadhi to be developed, Chandra, ekagratave tiyenna ඕන. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒකාග්‍රතාවයට වැටෙන්න. There should be, for samadhi to be developed, the mind has to be able to have a sense of one point, or develop a sense of one-pointedness. For one-pointedness to be developed, you have to have one object. Right? So that is why I said, initially I said, metta can be practiced as a quality, as boosting your qualities. Metta can also be practiced as a journey or a path leading to samadhi. So usually what teachers say is, first do the directions. North, east, south. In Burma, they have this beautiful practice where in their shrine rooms, they have a small globe. Yeah, the globes, right? The small globe, which is something you can hold like this and you can spin it, right? It's a globe, right? The world map. Right.
Yeah, it's very easy to do. That is what I do. And I go into a sort of very pleasant state. And so it's very peaceful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they do that.
So I had to start doing it. So I thought doing it individually, it's a sort of cumbersome, and you have to really concentrate on it. So that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So initially, what the teachers say is, do the directions first. Once you are good, once you have this essence of loving kindness and you're touched by this essence of loving kindness, and you acknowledge the fact that when the mind is within a state of loving kindness towards beings, then it is far more of a better foundation to go into this practice.
Okay.
Right? But
thank you.
Some people, Chandra, they have a sense of, their minds are not that restless. They have that deep sense of samadhi, right? But deep sense of metta. But this practice gives us a certain edge, a beneficial edge over vipassana. And I will teach you that now. How? Right?
Okay.
Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. right? Faith, effort, awareness, concentration, and wisdom or discernment. When one takes an object that is respected, this is a person that we usually have a sense of loving. Even if the person does something wrong, we take it in a manner where there is a depth of reason in it, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
It is as if, the parents always telling their children, do this, do this, do this, right? But the children never listen. But then some motivational speaker or some millionaire somewhere, some YouTube person or Instagram person or TikTok person tells the same thing. Or it is written in a book and they listen, right? And as a parent, you wonder, I've been telling you this for years, right? A respected person is always hoisted up in our consciousness. The respected person has a rather unique position, right? Because it is difficult to look at the respected person in a negative way. That is why we start with a respected person, right?
Bhante,
Yes, Sheila.
doesn't the self come into this?
Self, අර එතන ශීලා මේක මේ සමාධියනේ මෙතන. හරි? අර one self එක එන්නේ අර චන්ද්‍ර කියපු අර දිසා භාවනාවේ. හරි? තරාම මේ මෙතන this moment we first the one self having metta towards oneself comes in that disa bhavana where you the directions where you do the metta according to the directions, where you start with this mind and body, and then north, south, east, west, southeast, and zenith, and all of that, right? So you've done that already. You've done that already by the time you come to this position, right? Now, this is what I want to come to everyone. We cultivate metta towards a respected person first. May you be well and happy. We envision their wellness, their cultivation, their development, their health, their well-being, all of that, right? And then once that has been completed, when we go into a deep sense of samadhi with this, we drop into the second, which is the dear one. Now, the dear one is a little bit more complex because, let us say, a mother taking once, let us say, a child as an object, right? A mother taking a child as an object. That could very well come into the perspective, or can be, that child could be taken as object through a lobha chitta or a greed chitta, right? A greed consciousness. So that is why first we do the respected, and we come to really be aware of what is that essence of metta, and then we develop the same towards the dear person who becomes the object, right? Now, the dear person, equally as we radiated metta towards the respected, equally we radiate the same metta towards the dear. And then once the dear has been completed, right, then the unknown. Now, Balanna, there is a connection between these two, right? There's a connection between all of these levels. And that is prajna, which is what? To drop from the respected to the dear, right? Sometimes the mind may to isolate lobha or greed, we bring prajna into the mind to say, just as my teachers who I cultivate loving kindness towards, or these respected persons, in the same manner, may ones who are dear, and I take an object, let us say a son, may my son be well and happy, right? Or may my best friends be well and happy, right? May my kalyana mitra, my spiritual friend, be well and happy, right? In such a manner, we cultivate the sense of metta towards the deer. From the deer to come into the unknown also happens with a sense of prajna, where we realize just as the respected person is mind and body, the dear one is mind and body, the unknown one is also mind and body, meaning that we are all connected in a network of human existence, whether it be respected, dear, or unknown. Is that clear, everyone? Right? Meaning, the blood that runs through the veins of the person who is dear, the blood that runs through the veins of the person who is my enemy is the same. The animosity that I feel is the same animosity that could arise within the heart of a respected person, a dear person, an unknown person, and the disliked person or the enemy. In this manner, we have prajna indriya working to bring all of these persons one. Do you understand? And that happens when we do the unknown or radiate loving kindness towards the unknown person. And then we come to take an object that is disliked, right? At this position, when we finish with the dislike, all sankhara dhamma, these are all sankharas, right? Nama sankhara, mental formations, and body formations. All mental and body formations, right, or sankharas are in the same nature. Right? So the person who is liked, the person who is disliked, the person who is respected, the person who is dear, my closest and people who are furthest away from my heart and myself, all become one sankhara, one dhamma, one mental and body formation, in a way that I am able to now radiate the purest form of loving kindness without these concepts or boundaries of individuality to all beings. Now, having the truest ability to say, may all beings be well and happy. That happens as you cultivate the metta, moment to moment. Shraddha, when you realize all of these persons are going through their own struggles, all of these persons, right, have good and bad in them, good and bad potential in them, right? Just as I have good and bad potential within myself, right? Their Shraddha rises together with Prajna. Now see how we connected last time? Shraddha, faith, is always balanced with wisdom, right? Then let us take the example of a dear person, right? Looking as we engage with a dear object, right? Knowing where to strike a balance befalls virya and samadhi, right? Effort and concentration. Now, when the four legs of a table, right? The four legs of a table are present, you can lay a plank of wood on it. That is sati, everyone. Right? When Shraddha and Prajna is in balance, virya and samadhi is in balance, that is like the four legs of a table, right? Four legs of a table. When those four legs are present, you can lay, that is sati, lay the plank of wood on it. That is sati. Sati will keep everything, that balance that you maintained, Sati will keep it at that level. Do you understand? Right? Now, let us say, as an example, let us say the variance of your balance required of the object is, I'm just quoting a number, let us say 67, right? 67. Sati, 67%, let us say, right? Sati maintains 67%. Do you understand? Right? Maintains at 67% in order that all the indriyas strike a balance in order to be with that object. Now, when one is accomplished in metta, or one develops that metta, that sense of metta in that manner, right? When one is accomplishing that metta, one can take an object. Remember, it is metta, mudita, metta, karuna mudita, no? Or mudita karuna?
Metta
Metta
karuna.
karuna mudita.
Metta, karuna, mudita,
Upekka.
upekka. This metta, karuna, mudita have to all end up in a position of upekka. How now this upekka at the greatest level of the end of its trajectory is enlightenment. That is where the most sublime state of upekka is. But before that, as practitioners, this sense of upekka arises through the metta. You realize that all dhammas, all persons, mind and body formations that we interact with within this world, within this, through our six sense bases, are all nama and rupa, mind and body, are all mind and body. Because it is mind and body, just as I go through inflictions of hindrances, all other beings go through infliction of those hindrances. Just as for me, the hetuphalas negate how I act and react to present object, for all of these persons in the same manner, cause and effect determines how one acts and reacts in this present moment. Just as I make silly mistakes, or I might have a spur of anger or greed or hatred or whatever it is, just so all other beings in the same manner have the potential within them to act and react through hatred, anger, animosity, lust, ego, and all of those hindrances are potential within all beings who have not eradicated or not attained enlightenment, right? That is the trajectory which we place into what? Anapana. Anapanasati. Or Anapanasati, or we can say the Satipatthana. The Satipatthana is, we know, Kayanupassana, right? The four Satipatthanas. When we take any object of the four Satipatthanas, that object that we take through this Vipassana that we are following, which is at current the PAOK technique, but we also take guidance from Mahasi Sayadaw, right? This PAOK technique and Mahasi Sayadaw's technique teaches us on how to maintain ourselves in a position where this equality of dhammas is seen, not just understood, but seen, knowing and seeing, right? Knowing and seeing. Hence, metta practices, metta karuna, the four, what is the English term for the four Brahma Vihara Dhammas? Do you remember? The four guardian meditation. No, that's the protective meditations, Asubha Bhavana and such. right? The 4 Brahma Vihara we call, which is Brahma Vihara. Vihara are the Metta, Mudita, Karuna, Upekka, right?
Bhante, it's illimitables.
No, not the illimitables.
Yeah, it is actually defined in the Abhidhamma.
That is Karuna and Mudita,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, Metta, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksa, all 4 illimitables.
There is a Brahma Vihara Dhamma. There is an English translation of Brahma Vihara Dhamma, right?
Oh, I see.
There's an English translation of Brahma Vihara. That is what I want, right? Brahma Vihara.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Now, 4 Brahma Vihara Dhammas, right? The Khasina, the Khasinas, the Asubha Bhavana, the Patikula Sanya,
Bhante, excuse me, Bhante.
Yes,
English.
Shraddha?
Just a minute, I just give the English meaning.
Yeah.
It says divine abidings.
Divine abodes.
Abidings, say abode.
Abidings, yes. Divine abidings. Divine abidings.
Yeah.
Thank you. The 4 divine abidings, that is Metta, Mudita, Karuna, Upekka. The 8 Khasina meditations, right? The Asubha Bhavana, the Patikula Samnya. Asubha Bhavana is the meditation of contemplating or seeing the putrid nature of the body, right? The putrid nature of the body. Patikula Sanya. Patikula Sanya is, what is Patikula Sanya?
Particular sanya.
Remember Patikula Sanya?
32 parts of the body.
Yes, 32 parts of the body, right? 32, which is the 32 parts of the body. 32 parts of the body. Now, these meditations, everyone, is done upon the mind and the body. Mind and body, right? So really, these meditations open us. Now, I know that sometimes this Asubha Bhavana, Patikula Sanya, to a person who might be new to the practice, might engage with these specific, where we see the putrid nature or the unsatisfactory nature of the mind, of the body in particular, right? It might feel like a lot of self-hate, right? It might feel like having a sense of, developing a sense of, self-hate. That would only happen, right? That would only happen if the meditation is not approached through a certain sense of Dhamma knowledge. So whilst we practice Abhidhamma, or, Abhidhamma shows us a deeper, such a finer depth to the practice, it is also important to have the sutras with you, to read through the sutras and have the beauty of the sutras encouraging the Dhamma practice, for us to realize or come into the realization that when it comes to the mind and the body, right? The mind and body, right, is something that is impermanent. In comparison, the body is far more impermanent in comparison to the mind. Would I be right if I said that? The body is far more impermanent in comparison to the mind. What do you think about that statement? Because the body, after a certain point of aging, or through unnatural or natural causes, will come to an end. But what happens to the mind? The mind, without any form of stumbling, continues. But for that minute moment where the body dies, the mind arises in a position where that position relates, connects with that particular mind's energy at the last moment. Simply, it disappears from this body and arises at a position where the energy vibration connects to it. So the mind, although this too is impermanent, right? We see that the body decays far more. Now, the body, usually people don't see the mind so much. The body is what is usually seen. So we take things at face value, right? We look at a person and we would, naturally sometimes judge a person by what the person wears to assume, oh, is this person doing well? Is this person not doing so well, right? Is this person coming from a good background or not, because of color or what they are wearing or what not. Because of the sixth sense basis, because particularly the sixth sense basis, we live attached to this body, which at one point it dies and then the mind continues into another body. We are stuck at this physical realm. That is why this world is called, or where we live in is called the Kama Vachara Bhumi. Kama Vachara Bhumi. Kama Vachara Bhumi. Kama Vachara Titi, Kama Vacharo. Kama is usually translated as sensual pleasure, right? Sensual pleasure. Sensual pleasure, right? Pleasure. But I am not so happy with the translation of karma in this pretext as sensual pleasure, because karma is, of course, it's connected to, if you put pleasure here, we know that karma, or we are not always in a position of pleasure, but most often we thrive for pleasure, isn't it? We work so hard to accomplish something, to earn, right? But we work, let us say, 30 days for that payday that comes at the end of the month, right? We cook, spend hours cooking for that 30-minute or 1-hour meal that we are going to be having. And most probably also having it in front of the TV whilst feeding the senses with another sensual object, right? So that is why I'm not so happy with the word pleasure being there. So karma is sensual, right? Sensual meaning not in any way lustful, because when we use the English word sensual, it's very passionate, it's very lustful, isn't it? That word comes from a very lustful background. But this is more the senses. The senses. In the Kama Vachara Bhumi, the plane of the senses are king or queen. The senses takes the predominant place of our existence, because we live to see. Why do we go on vacations? We go on vacations, we see beautiful sights, we eat things that we do not get to eat in our home country, right? What we do in that sense is all surrendered around the karma, all surrendered around the karma. Hence, in the Kama Vachara Bhumi, all of those meditations that we spoke of earlier, bring us to a position where, for that moment of the mind is not moved or swayed by the power of karma. Do you understand? Right? In all other moments, in all other times, karma is what drives us. Karma, or these sensors, the six sense bases, right? Six sense bases, future objects meaning all those things that you're looking forward to experience and all of that, right? So if you're meditating for the pleasure that comes out of that meditation, then that is most often falling into the mindfulness side of things. But when a meditator matures, you realize meditation is just not about being within a state of pleasure, but it is in the depth of understanding that we realize through knowing and seeing what the present is, right? And that sentence could mean so many things to the different practitioners, isn't it? Right? According to your practice, you will understand what that statement is, right? According to your practice. Now, metta, marananusati, buddhanusati, all of those different practices taught, asubha bhavana, all of those different practices, if we are to take, right, let us say the 4 protective meditations. The 4 protective, what are the 4 protective meditations? 4 protective meditations. What are these? 1.
Buddhanusati.
Buddhanusati, which is the nusati, contemplation of the qualities of the Buddha, right? So qualities of the Buddha.
Dhammanusati, Sanghanusati.
No,
I don't know.
no, loving kindness, isn't it something?
Yeah. So the
Kindness?
first one is metta.
Yes, metta.
Metta, loving kindness.
Buddhanusati.
Yes. Buddhanusati.
Marananusati.
Buddhanusati. Buddhanusati.
Marananusati, the last one.
Marananusati is the last one. The third one is
Protective.
Asubha bhavana.
Yeah.
Asubha.
Asubha bhavana. And the fourth one is
Marananusati.
Marana, death. Right? Marananusati. Right? Now look at this. These are the 4 protective meditations. So in the morning, after our initial meditation at PAOK, 4:30 in the morning, 4:30 to 4:30 in the morning before our meditation, right? That would be the loudspeakers. They have a beautiful sort of Burmese, like a mantra sort of thing, right? Where the 4 protective meditations are chanted, right? So the 4 o'clock in the morning, they hit the gong, and then 4:45 or so, if I remember correctly, they put this recording. And before, as we walk into the meditation hall, we walk with the contemplation of the 4 protective meditations every single day, right? What are the 4 protective meditations, everyone? Right? Now, this is protection for all meditators. Protection from what? Protection from what?
External forces.
External forces. How the external forces? The taxman? How the
Spirits.
government?
I don't know.
Thoughts.
The Labour
Thoughts.
government, the Tory government, who are the external forces? Huh? The hindrances.
Hindrances.
Our minds from, yes.
Right? The hindrances. Protection from the hindrances. The hindrances, metta, buddhanusati, asubha bhavana, Marananusati. Through these 4 meditations, everyone, one develops the 5 indriyas. Right? The 5 indriyas. Shraddha, Sati. Shraddha, I'm going to write it in English. Faith, effort, awareness, concentration, and wisdom, or discernment. Discernment, wisdom. Now see, the protection comes from the mind's ability to strike a sense of balance where these 5 components of mind are present in every state of every awareness-based state, as we walk, as we talk, as we meditate, as we eat. Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. The 4 protective meditations. Look, loving kindness meditation, to have loving kindness towards all individuals, regardless of circumstance, regardless of how difficult this individual is being, which can be challenging at times, right? Even if you did lose your temper and cool, to bring it back into a position where you quickly let go of that and bring it back to sati, bring it back to the wholesome state of mind, is what metta does. Right? Practitioners, up until you attain, where does dosa? Dosa is eliminated where? Dosa is eliminated with Maggapala. Dosa is hatred.
So,
Anagami.
Anagami. Right? Anagami. Damayanti. Hari. Anagami. Otokota, metta is adosa. Right? The opposite of dosa. Right? Dosa disappears at the 3rd stage of enlightenment. Right? Which means at the stage start of Bodhi, I'm saying just because it's a shorter word, right? Which means that up until the 3rd stage of Bodhi or 3rd stage of enlightenment, your metta will be constantly balancing, right? Constantly balancing. Evunata. Ayonsu mansikara, when unwise attention arises, what happens? Now your metta fails. You tried very hard, but the circumstance was difficult, right? Circumstance was difficult. The challenge posted in the present was difficult. Hence, what happened? You lapsed, right? Dosa arose, right? The opposite of metta arose in taking the object. Now, what we often as practitioners, what we often do is now, what happens in our minds? Now, I've been trying to keep my metta constant, right? I lapsed. And when I lapse, often guilt arises in the mind. Isn't it? Guilt. Then lajja venama, you feel ashamed, you feel let down, you feel like you've let yourself down, right? You feel like you've sort of, put your practice aside, or you failed your practice. Now, all of that is connected to what? Mana. All of that is connected to conceit. Because why? The practice became a thing. A practice is not a thing. A practice is moment-to-moment commitment. And we know that this commitment at times would fail. If it fails, the most important thing is learn, move on. right? Because guilt is like a multiplier of akusala. Guilt is a multiplier of akusala, of unwholesome energy. You think about something which has happened and you're guilty about it, you're feeling very low about it. What happens? Your position of mind, all of these things become weaker. Why? Because it is an unwholesome state. And point blank, you can just remember this. Unwholesome states of mind are not to be entertained. Even guilt. There you realize, Ketupala, I lapse because of weakness within the Indriya. Motivate yourself, go back into the metta. Bring it back up. How do you bring it back up? Not holding on to the anger. Acknowledging that the anger was a lapse, that the anger did not belong in that consciousness, but it did arise because of a lapse in your indriyas, your attention, your faith, your wisdom, your effort, your concentration, your awareness. Because of that lapse, the awareness failed, the table collapsed. Does that make sense? So these protective meditations, metta, buddhanusati. Buddhanusati is directly balancing faith and prajna. Faith and discernment. The direct balance of faith and discernment is directly related to buddhanusati. Keep in the mind for that hour or through the day as you do your counting of buddhanusati, keep in the mind the effort that you put in to keep the mind with that element of the qualities of the Buddha is effort and concentration. See how you learn about the Indriyas? The Buddha's path is very clear. Right? The Buddha's path is very clear. Asubha Bhavana. Asubha Bhavana is now, when it comes to circumstances of senses, the senses, kama loka, right? Sense sphere. The sense sphere operates on physicality, isn't it? Physicality is what we see, hear, smell, taste, feel. If we are overly concerned about this physicality in a lustful manner with the lobha mula chitta, what happens? We don't want to go beyond it. Right? We don't want to go beyond it. Hence, Asubha Bhavana. Asubha Bhavana is the meditation which helps a meditator to strike a balance where you take care of yourself, which is the mind and the body, the two components absolutely necessary for one who wants to practice in order to achieve enlightenment. Mind and body is, you have to have a mind and body, right? But this mind and body being overly concerned about its vanity, right? Its vanity is Asubha Bhavana. Now, Asubha Bhavana applies to both the mind and the body, not just the body. Because vanity of the body is somewhat easier to overcome more than the vanity of the mind, isn't it? Right? Now, let us say the friends that we associate, right? The friends that we associate, we might call them Kalyana Mitras or whatnot, or good friends or close friends or best friends. But if there is a point, right, where the mind takes pride in, let us say, my friends are all professionals, right? My friends are all qualified, they are wealthy, they are well-to-do, they are well-connected, right? Now that is the vanity of the mind. So Asubha Bhavana relates the vanity of the mind circulates around the vanity of the body. Right? So Asubha Bhavana tackles that vanity and tells you, brings you back to reality and tells you, look here, This vanity that you have over the body, circulating around the body, is based upon something where intrinsically it is one day going to fail, one day, or right now it is ill, or it is going to be diseased, or whatnot. In so many different ways, we tackle that vanity of body and subsequently that mind. Because when that vanity of mind and body is so important, the practice will at one place, at one position, come to hinder itself by itself. Right? So that is lobha, chitta for you there. And then marananusati, death. Death is seen in two ways, isn't it? The initial death that we see is kaya marana. So any sort of, any normal, person who has not meditated or gone into the study of the Dhamma, if you ask them what is death, they will say death is what happens when you die. Right? Death is what happens when you die. Right? And what is dying? Dying is the loss of the body. Right? The loss of the body, loss of this life and everything to do with this life. That is called in Pali Kaya Marana. But Kaya Marana is okay, it is obvious. You do not need the Buddha telling you about Kaya Marana, because Kaya Marana is something so obvious to all persons. The Buddha says, direct your attention to the fact that one day, one fine day, everything will have to be left behind through Kaya Marana, but also through that realize that it is not only the Kaya Marana, which is a component of body, Nama, right? But the mind too dies. The mind dies. Every singular moment, the mind dies and reappears again, dies and reappears again. Upada, arising, titi, possessing, banga, dissolution, and then again upada, titi, banga. Moment to moment. Hence, when metta fails, at times, when you have lapses of metta, upada, titi, banga. Arising, possessing, dissolution, buddhanusati, right? Whilst you have all of this shraddha in your mind, right, there is a lapse of your attention and focus where the hindrances are now able to arise. Put it into upadhatiti banga, which is, what is this? This is kanika marana. Kanika marana. Kanika marana, kanika is momentary death. Moment to moment, a chitta, a consciousness arises and it disappears. The vipassana meditator, to fully gain a certain sense of sensible control over the five indriyas, one must understand kanika marana. Why? Because if you're holding on to the past, these factors will not arise. Why? Lobha. When you're holding on to something of the past, you're not operating through these things, these wholesome parts that ensures the progression of the mind, but you're working through aspects of lobha, greed. Kanika Marana teaches you that there is nothing to cling on to, be in the present. So when you are practicing Anapanasati Bhavana, the breathing meditation, remember, always have the 4 protective meditations by your side all the time. Let this be first or second nature. May your mind always have the aspects of the metta, buddhanusati, asubha, right? Asubha, and death, marana, right? And death. When it comes to death, when you bring the aspect of death, it is so easy to let go of things. How many do we know? Our own families. fighting over lands, fighting over houses. There are multiple houses already, right? Lands that you might have not visited in decades, but you're still going to courts, fighting for my children, for my children. That is the excuse we all use. That's especially also the excuse that a lot of women use to stay in spoiled marriages. For my children, I'm doing this. For my children, I'm doing. These are all false excuses of greed, right? When you put it into death, whatever it is, rather than making the excuse, because people's circumstances are different. It is very difficult for an external person to judge another person without knowing the full story, right? So rather than holding qualms and all of that for the path of enlightenment, we have to have the support of these practices of metta, buddhanusati, asubha, and death to be able to let go and not cry after letting go. Because sometimes we also cry after letting go. We feel a sense of, why did I do that? Right? We feel a sense of loss. But remember, when these parts of the mind, when these practices are operating in the mind, everything that you let go of will only strengthen you even further. You will not feel like the loser. If you feel like the loser after letting go, go back to how you did that letting go, to contemplate whether you did it in a manner that was supported by a kusala mind or an akusala mind, right? When it comes to the meditation practice in ensuring this element of sati, which is this middle factor of sati, the plank or the heavy wood on top of the 4 legs that it stands on, or it is balanced upon, this sati is a karmically invariable factor, isn't it? Sati is a karmically invariable factor. But when it comes to the 5 indriyas, it is not karmically invariable here. These 5 indriyas only speak about enlightenment and the practice of leading to enlightenment. However, sati is a karmically invariable factor. So sati, awareness, is given to both objects that are taken through kusala and objects that are taken through akusala, right? Awareness. So if I'm going to pick up the bottle, I know where the bottle is, my hand is reaching to the bottle, I pick up the bottle. There is a sense of sati in it, isn't it? Right? If I want to adjust my lighting, right? If I want to pick up the red pen instead of the green, there's a sense of awareness over where the red pen is, isn't it? Right? In such a manner, sati is karmically invariable. When sati is karmically invariable, just because you are aware of what you are doing or you did the wrong thing with awareness does not mean that this is going to support your enlightenment process. The sati should always come through the kusala to promote the 5 indriyas. Not the akusala. Not the akusala, but the kusala to promote the 5 indriyas. So in the anapanasati practice, in the breathing meditation practice, this becomes what allows your practice. The 4 protective meditations become your support in initially balancing the 5 indriyas, or to developing some sort of 5 indriyas to kick off and start the practice. Now we come back to samatha and vipassana. Samatha, vipassana. Samatha, vipassana is practice through what kind of mind? Lobha mind, yes or no?
No.
Dosa mind?
No.
No. Moha mind, delusion mind?
No.
No.
No. Ahetuka mind, rootless minds? Rootless minds? That is a bit tricky question, right? What if someone says yes? Does anyone say yes? Ahetuka, rootless minds.
Bhante, I would say yes.
You would say yes.
Yes.
Your Vishaka, I suppose, is saying yes, right? Is because we meditate upon the Chakku Vinyana, Sota Vinyana, Gahana, Jibha, Kaya Vinyana. No? In that case, we can say we do Samatha Vipassana through the Ahetuka Chittas. But remember, if we take, let's say, the first chitta, which is the Chakku, the eye consciousness, the eye consciousness is the object of which mind? That's the question. The Chakku Vinyana or the meditation, right, is the object of what mind? In Samatha and Vipassana.
Vipassana.
So in Ahetuka cannot take object, remember. Ahetuka cannot take object, right? Only Sampatichana, Santirana can take object. Other than that, and Manodvara Vajna, other than that, the object falls on it, isn't it? Remember, it doesn't take object, the object falls on it, right? It is as if I am standing with my arms open, right? And something is thrown onto my arms. So I did not reach out for it. My arms were like this and something fell on it. Do you understand? So it doesn't take object, object falls on it, right? But that's, not an area we want to go to today. Samatha and Vipassana is practice, or the object of the meditation, meditation object is taken through, meditation object is taken through the beautiful consciousnesses. Right? Beautiful consciousnesses. Right? The Sobhana Chittas that we study in our Monday and Thursday classes in Abhidhamma. Right? Beautiful consciousnesses. These beautiful consciousnesses can be jnana with knowledge and without knowledge, isn't it? Jnana sampayutta, jnana vipayutta. With knowledge and without knowledge. So, a meditation object can be taken with knowledge, a meditation object can be taken without knowledge. Is that possible? Kiwa harida?
Yes.
Yes.
Hari, yes. Eka therum nati kenek innawada. Bhavana aramunak, I'm going to repeat that in Sinhala. Bhavana aramunak, bhavana karmasthanayak, ඥාන සම්පයුක්තව ගන්නත් පුළුවන් ඥාන විප්පයුක්තව ගන්නත් පුළුවන්. හරි. ඒක තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ මේමයි. දැන් මෛත්‍රිය කරාගෙන අපි යනවා. We are practicing metta bhavana. We are so familiar with this practice. So metta, we have now started to embody a certain level of metta. Now we don't have to remind the mind why we have to have metta, isn't it? Otakota without knowledge, right? Now a challenging circumstance has fallen in front of us, right? Now in this position, we have to bring out a sense to further energize the mind's capacity of taking that metta or being able to continue radiating that metta. We have to energize the mind. Now we energize it through with knowledge. Is that clear, everyone? Right? Is that clear? Right? Now, let me take another example. Asubha Bhavana. Right? Contemplating on the Asubha. on the grossness of the body, right? The pilikul bhavya, the asubha nature. I forget the English word for asubha. Foulness meditation, right? Foulness, the foul, contemplating on the foulness of the body, which foulness is a very strong word. Contemplating on the foulness. Now, when we contemplate on the foulness meditation, let us say, we see the mind. Now we are contemplating in order to maneuver the mind into a position where we are seeing the foulness of the body, but we are not creating an aversion to the body. Isn't it? That comes with knowledge. With knowledge, it activates prajna. To find that balance with Shraddha. Right? Why? Where does that, who points out that manner and tells us you can see foulness of something, but also at the same time you can see that nature of foulness without dejecting it? Who teaches us that? The Buddha. So the faith arises to the Dhamma that we are now trying to practice. Having faith in that Dhamma, if you go or approach it, no, there is nothing good about this. You go on to the aversion side of looking at the body through an aversion-based foulness. Now, kusala drops, dosa arises, isn't it? With knowledge is used to activate this prajna indriya towards the meditation object. Prajna indriya towards the meditation object. Is that clear, everyone? Right?
Bhante, sorry, Bhante. Does that mean Jnana Samprayukta is better than Jnana Viprayukta Bhavana?
You can't say that it is better. Right? Now remember Chandra.
No, not Chandra, Vishaka.
Vishaka. Vishaka. It is not to say that it is better. Now, remember, I'm going to use your question as a point to explain another piece of Dhamma. We know that ego is broken up into three parts, right? We know that ego is broken up into three parts. Adimanya, Seyamana, Heenamana. The Buddha says Adimanya to someone who doesn't understand. Adimanya is thinking that you're higher. Or something is higher, something belonging to you is higher, right? Yeah. So, not that I am better, but my house is better than the neighbors, right? Right? Seyamana, right? Equal, right? That my house is equal, or I am equal to my neighbor, right? And Adimana, Seyamana, and Heenamana. My house is poorer than my neighbors. Right? The Buddha directly refers to these three types of mana, conceit, as hallucinations. Manyana. Mana manyana is broken down into those parts. Right? Hallucinations. Now this is a bit of a complicated thing if you tell this to a person, because usually in the Samriti world, in the conventional world, we have been taught in schools or good human values, we have always been taught to come into a position of seeing equality, that we are equal to one another. The Buddha says, we are neither equal to one another, neither are we higher than one another, neither are we poorer than one another. Actually, that whole cycle of measurement is a fallacy. Right? So, when we say better or worse, it's nothing to do with better or worse. It's to do with Hetupala. Right? It's to do with Hetupala. The question of better or worse comes from a point of ego. But to come to Vishaka's actual question, Vishaka, no. We cannot say that this is better or worse because you take this, Vishaka. An enlightened being going into Nirodha Samapatti. He has done it so many times, right? Now he is able to go into Nirodha Samapatti with so much proficiency that he can do it Jnana Vipayutta. Does that make sense? So how can we say that Jnana Vipayutta is better than Jnana Sampayutta? It depends on the position. Does that make sense, Vishaka?
Bhante, I'm sorry, Bhante, you explained this in the past as well, but still I can't understand that very well.
Which word?
No, this Jnana Samprayukta, Jnana Viprayukta Bhavanaava, regarding that you explained sometimes in the past, but still I can't understand.
Yes. So this is something that I was going to explain today. So I will come to that. Right now, up until this point, everyone, I don't want to go on for too long, but up until this point, right? Let's put aside Vishaka's question for now because I'm going to come to it. Up until this point, do you have any questions? Okay, no questions. Now, right. So then we come, now we said with knowledge, without knowledge. Then the question comes, how does with knowledge and without knowledge work? Which is Vichaka's question, right? Wait, did I finish this on Samatha Vipassana? Right. So Samatha, let me finish this last point here. Samatha meditation, the focus of Samatha or the poignant factor or mental factor in Samatha is ekagata, one-pointedness, right? One-pointedness. Right? That is the predominant factor in Samatha, not wisdom, one-pointedness. So with regards to Samatha, wisdom can help us reach one-pointedness, but wisdom is not the final goal. In Vipassana, when the yogi takes, so for example, if I might say, a yogi taking an object for Samatha Bhavana, the yogi is only trying to develop a sense of ekagata, right? Ekagata, one-pointedness. In the Vipassana Bhumi, the pivotal aim of this practice is prajna, wisdom, right? Wisdom. Here, the yogi takes an object with or to cultivate prajna. Does that make sense? Right? To cultivate prajna. Prajna.
Bhante,
Oh,
can you say you take an object because you take only the concept or Paramartha Dhamma?
yeah. Not concept, Paramartha.
Because, yeah.
So,
Now,
Samatha,
yeah, because let me tell you, because Samatha is actually you take object, external object.
yeah. Yes, Dhamsri kiyanna.
Yeah, okay.
ඒ කියන්නේ, so what Dhamsri is trying to say there is in the Samatha practice, you take concept, prajnati, concepts as object. In the Vipassana, You don't take concept as object, you take paramatta dhamma as object. Right? Paramatta dhamma as object. This Mahasi Sayadaw gives an example, beautiful example here. One goes to a magic show, right? And the one who is in this magic show does not get the point that this is just a mirage, an illusion that is displayed in front of you, right? That this is not real. When the person does not understand that this is not real, this is just not understand fully, but even in a certain sense. Now, when we would go to a magic show, we do not know how they do that card trick. We don't know how they made that thing disappear or how they made that woman or man disappear. We don't know, but we know that there is definitely something behind it. Right? So the whole show is rather amusing and baffling at the same time, and that sense of bafflement that we have is, in its own sense, the amusement that we enjoy, right? Now, if one does not have the common sense of realizing that this magic show is just some sort of trickery in front of us, and you believe it as real, right? That is going to be a hindrance to practice vipassana. Right? That is a hindrance to practice vipassana. That is why the Burmese Sayadaws, from all who we know, relate to the fact that when a yogi is practicing vipassana, you have a vipassana yogi only takes paramatta dhamma as object, not prajñapti or concepts. In the vipassana bhumi, there is no man, no woman. There is only beings, mind and body. Right? Mind and body. So in that mind and body, the samatha takes that concept, mind, body, animals, colors, textures, feels, all of that comes into prajñapti, which is concepts. Right? Metta bhavana can be cultivated into jhana or samadhi practices. What happens? Metta bhavana takes what object? Man, woman, sick person, all of that, isn't it? Prajñapti. Animal, right? Karuna, right? Which karuna, you look at a person and you have a sense of happiness over that person's situation. Prajñapti. That situation itself is prajñapti, isn't it? Right? Being poor, you look at a poor person, a yachaka, right? And you feel a sense of sympathy. A yachaka is a concept. A person's poverty is a concept, right? Is a concept, right? Now, there are beggars. You would call a yachaka a beggar, right? And look down upon the beggar, whilst you have monks who are beggars. But we respect those beggars. Right? Now, in the Tripitaka, it says another word for a monk is a beggar. Right? But the Buddha says, the only way to be freed of the easiest way to be free of the 6 sense bases, not to get entrapped into the hole, the gatta, anto jata, bahi jata, ekata awwenne nathuwa, right? Awwenne nathuwa, right? ජීවත් වෙන්න හොඳම විදිය කියලා කියනවා මෙන්න මේ මේ යාචක මේ පින්ඩපාතේ practice එක. Right? Of course, now this has been, taken somewhat, somewhat out of context by some, categories of bhikkhus. However, there is a very authentic practice where, when we are, going on Pindapath in Burma or in Sri Lanka or in Thailand, the Buddha has said, after, if the person is poor, right, but they're trying to serve you some food, right, after 2 spoons, stop. Don't let them give you any more, right? And if of course, this applies if the person who is offering is a Sotapanna, because from a Sotapanna, if you're going to if the Sangha is going to ask for something, the Sotapannas have such a strong sense of faith that they will give. So the Buddha has told, when you're dealing with enlightened lay people, especially Sotapannas, make sure that you do not accept more than this proportion of food or whatever it is that you're going to ask from them. Now, these are only concepts, right? These are concepts because if you remember, was it in the Dipankara Buddha Sasana where the monks went and they removed a roof? They removed the roof of a devotee's මේ හොඳ සංඝයාට බොහොම ලැබි පවුලක්, very very close with the Sangha, right? And the monks in there removed the roof without even asking, right? And they brought it to the monastery, right? Which is absolutely, absolutely beyond us. I remember even when we learned it, it says, we were all baffled by how this could be done, where the monks go to a devotee's house, right? And the monks get together and they remove the roof. The monks are also enlightened, right? The monks are also enlightened monks, right? They remove a roof and the Buddha says, that time it was not an issue. It was not a problem because the devotees were so close at the time, right? But in our sasana, the Gautama Buddha sasana, the Gautama Buddha has not allowed such things, right? I think, right, with my understanding, what I think is, the time that we live in, right, with the amount of resources available to people, right? And now, back in the day, a roof is just leaves, isn't it? Leaves and nails and wood, right? Now, a roof is a huge, tremendous job and an investment, right? So, according to the times, these rules have also changed in the sasana. So our rules in this time, in this Buddha Sasana, our rules are far more stricter. And there are sasanas which have no rules at all. There is no Vinaya Pitaka, right? There is no Vinaya Pitaka in most sasanas. Only the Abhidhamma Pitaka and the Sutra Pitaka, right? No Vinaya Pitaka. Why? Because the Buddhas lived so long that throughout that time that the Buddhas lived, the Buddhas, because of their omniscient knowledge, the monks are very scared of Buddhas. Whilst they respect Buddhas, the monks are also very scared of Buddhas. Why? Because the Buddha knows what you're thinking. So, right? So when it comes to අර කතාවක් තියෙනවා මහා in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, which takes place at the location where the Buddha is spending his last hours, isn't it? Right? The Mahaparinibbana Sutta gives detail after the demise of the Buddha. The enlightened monks did not shed a tear because enlightened monks do not cry, right? They do not feel that sense of sadness, right? They take it as a mind and body arising and passing. They're able to do that. But the Prutukjana monks, the monks who had not attained, they were wailing in sadness, right? And then we know the Abadda words of Subadda, right? Where Subadda, there a particular monk called Subadda, he gets up and he says, fellow monks, why are you crying? We can finally have freedom, right? The Buddha is gone. We can live as we wish, right? And the enlightened monks are shocked, including the other Prutukjana monks, are absolutely taken aback by this statement, right? About the words of Subadda, right? But the commentary explains where this came from, right? The මේ කතාව ලස්සනයි, right? During the time of the Buddha, as the Buddha lived, the Buddha was such a hands-on teacher, right? That he was reading everyone's mind. It actually tells that the Buddha even read into our own lives. To the end of the samsara, the Buddha looked at beings who are going to arise and preached the 84,000 words of Dhamma that have been taught is also for us, not only for that time. Because the Buddha would get up in the morning and he would also look into the future and see what kind of beings are going to arise in the future, right? So, because all the monks, the Sangha, knew that the Buddha was literally in their heads, they had such respect for the Buddha as the Buddha. And of course, now they are in the realm of the Buddha because they have come into the Sangha, that they would be petrified to entertain thoughts of lust and hatred and aversion. Can you imagine if you thought that this person was reading your mind all the time, and you had the utmost respect for this person because you knew that no harm would come from this person, right? How much of restraint would you have in your lives? Isn't it? You know, it is like being at a public ceremony or an event 24/7, even while you sleep. Just imagine. Because remember, when Sona Hamduru was walking, you know, his legs were bleeding, the Buddha arose. Suddenly he came there and he asked Sona, what are you doing? Right? When Moggallana Thera was going through the universe trying to find the end of samsara, he appeared out of nowhere and said, Moggallana, what are you doing? Remember? How? Because the Buddha was watching, reading, knowing everyone's mind. Just imagine, everyone. Just imagine. Right? So when it comes to that samatha practice, they take prajñapti, and vipassana practice, they take paramatta. Prajñapti, samadhi will let go of all prajñapti and focus upon one, thus coming balancing the indriyas in this sort of manner. In vipassana, we only take paramatta dhamma as object and then balance through these five through the vipassana. So remember to have the 4 protective meditations in your heart all the time. Metta, Buddhanusati, Asubha Bhavana, Marananusati. Right? Develop a sense of samatha up until you have the ability of being within the moment as the moment unfolds, being in that moment. And then when you have that, you can go into the vipassana and cultivate and look at the vipassana practice. Right? Look at the vipassana practice. Then අපි ටික භාවනා කරමු. Right? ඊට පස්සේ අපි ප්‍රශ්න ටික ගමු. හරි? Right. Let us sit for meditation. Taking a deep breath in. Guiding your attention to the breath. Gently closing your eyes, sitting comfortably. Not being too attached to the comfort, being in the present, observing. Guiding your attention to the breath. Being with the breath. Putting all else aside, the past and the future. And just being in the present. With the breath. Observing. Observing. Gently. Moment to moment. Knowing that only one consciousness, one object can be there within this moment. So observing the in-breath and out-breath, noting the in-breath and the out-breath as it occurs, as it unfolds. Observe. Observe the breath. Gently being with the breath. Taking every moment as a new opportunity, a fresh opportunity to find deeper balance. Be with the breath. Be with the breath. And taking a deep breath in, breathing out, relaxing, becoming aware of your environment as you gently, as and when you're ready, opening your eyes and awakening to the present. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, everyone. So, what are the questions that we have with regards to the practice, your own practice? Experiences that you might want to ask a question on? Anyone? Were you all able to try the in-breath, out-breath sitting? That technique that we introduced 2 weeks ago, I think. No, last week. Did anyone try that technique? Oh,
Yes,
Krishna.
Bhante. Yes. Oh,
What were your experiences, Krishanti?
ටිකක් දඟලනවා අඩුයි වගේ. එක තැනද. දිග හුස්ම තමයි දිගටම කෙරුණේ. චුටි කෙටි හුස්මක් ආවේ නැහැ. හොඳ මනස රිලැක්ස් වුණා. දිග හුස්ම වගේ තමයි තිබ්බේ.
Okay. ඉතින් මේ ඔතකොට මොනවද බැලුවේ sitting ද? In breath,
Oh,
out
yeah.
breath, sitting.
Oh.
Okay. Anyone else who also tried? නැද්ද? කවුරු try කළා නැහැ? හරි. අපිට තව ප්‍රශ්න නම් අදට නැද්ද?
Bhante,
Yes.
Bhante, we missed last week meditation.
Okay.
Can you put that one in the?
I will. Okay. There's something going on with my uploads because I'm uploading it, but it's not getting uploaded for some reason. But I'll check on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Just an update because tomorrow we will be starting our 7-day retreat in Surrey. So the Dhammasangani class would not happen along with the Thursday class. The Abhidhammata Sangraha class will also not happen because we will be at the retreat on this week. So through the Dhammasangani, the Thursday students, if you all work on your Sampayoga Sangraha, right, do the calculations and move forward as well, see whether you can get the numbers properly, all the Dhammas properly, and do those exercises. Put another update on the Vipassana Yanika group as well. And of course, continue with your meditation practice and let us put in the effort that is necessary to progress day by day through our practice. So do we have any other questions that anyone would like to ask?
Bhante, can I ask a question, please? I
Yeah.
just had a look at those calculation. If I get stuck, what help is how can I?
Well, Hiranti, I think this week, because we are also not having the classes this week, what you could do, Hiranti, and everyone else, Mr. Buddhadasa's talks.
Yeah.
You can listen to Mr. Buddhadasa's talks. The link has already been shared on the group, right? And try to calculate. Mr. Buddhadasa also explains and go forward. It is, I think each talk is 1 hour, long. So try to go through those talks, I think, in the meanwhile, and try. And if you, of course, have any questions, write them down. And when we, the week following, when we start again, do bring those questions and come.
Yeah, I had today, I just did start. And then I went into the chart, the big chart we asked.
Yes.
And then there was one or two. So what I can do is to put them down, those questions, and ask you really, because that's the only way.
Yes.
Because,
Yes. You can bring those questions in for the next class that we have. Something that, of course, our Monday group used to do is when we came to Sampayoga Sangraha, everyone, the friends sort of got together and studied together to help each other out also. So that is also suggested. And see what is good for you and take it at a pace. But of course, it has to go with the meditation. Coming to Abhidhamma, then me අපේ මේ ඉන්ද්‍රිය ධර්ම හතර පහ. So these are all chaitasikas, no? Right?
Yes, yeah.
කොට මේ නාමකරණය මෙන්න මේකේ නාම ධර්මයන් මේ චෛතසික ධර්මයන් වශයෙන් when we observe or when we come to a position where we are able to observe the chaitasikas or these factors individually, right? What happens is it becomes like a like a modulator, right? Like a regulator, right? And you can literally increase and decrease your virya. You can isolate, let us say, Shraddha from everything else, and you can increase and decrease your Shraddha, right? Meaning your increasing and decreasing of Shraddha depends on what Dhamma you take to mind to balance the Shraddha. Right? These are not just sort of it goes beyond just anumana, just thinking that this might be so. It becomes very palpable, right, to that. But of course, to reach that stage, ara මෙන්න මෙතන තියෙන සමාධිය ඕන. මෙතන තියෙන සමාධිය ඕන. Although ඒ සමාධියට ගොඩාක් උපකාර, it helps to develop this samadhi within the samatha, the 4 protections, right? So for example, now let us say this is a little bit too tough, let us say, for the beginner. Hari, then Krishanti, then ඔයා දැන්නේ පටන් අරගෙන තියෙන්නේ භාවනා කරන්න. හරි. ඔතන සමාහට දැන් වාට මේ පංච ඉන්ද්‍රියන් ටික බලනවා කියන එක සමාහට පොඩ්ඩක් වැඩි වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. So it might be a little bit overwhelming for you to look at these 5. Right? ඔතකොට මෙන්න මේ 4 විතරක් බලන්න. හරි. මේ 4 බලනවා. Again, let me tell you in English. What I mean by looking at these 4 protections to start off with is, let me just write that and finish it, which was Metta, Buddhanusati, I'm just going to say Buddha, Asubha, and death, Marana, right? Metta would come in as acceptance of the object. Metta is that sense of acceptance of the object. Acceptance, when we say acceptance, what is acceptance? Acceptance of its nature, right? When we are meditating, we cannot fight with objects. Let us say a certain Dhamma arose. Accepting the nature of that Dhamma. Accepting the nature of that Dhamma. Not having a sense of aggression onto that Dhamma, neither clinging on to the Dhamma. Because Metta is also not clinging, right? Metta. Buddhanushati, right, in the practice comes as the faith that you have towards the practice within the moment. Within the moment, the faith that you have. So, for example, if one would say, if this thought arises, does this actually work? Does this actually work? Will this actually bring me what I want? Right? Now, those kinds of nuanced distractions or certain thoughts that would appear in your mind, balance it off with Buddhanusati, which is faith. Faith in the Dhamma, in the practice. And what is a Dhamma? Dhamma is a reality as it unfolds. Right? Asubha. Asubha. When it comes to any Dhamma that you observe in your meditation, don't get too attached to any of it. Even the breath, don't get too attached to any of it. Within each and every breath is the dukkha satya. Within every moment, there is the noble truth of suffering. So attachment to any object can bring about suffering, right? Hence, don't get too attached to any physicality, any comfort, any discomfort, right? Getting attached to discomfort, right? Positive, negative. You're just observing. Death, letting go. When an object arises and it ceases, don't try to prolong it, neither do you wish that it arises again. Let it take its natural course. Tirnada. Does that make sense? Within the moment. So when you have the 4 protections in the same manner, the 4 protections, these are individual meditations, of course, but even when we are doing the Anapanasati practice, these 4 comes into play also. Those attitude, those essences. So by de facto, what you are doing is balancing these is also balancing these. But this might be too much for a beginner. It is, I don't really think so. But sometime, maybe I'm weird. So I don't think it is. But for some, right, it might be. So then start with these. Right? See whether you have metta towards the moment in your Anapanasati or whatever meditation that you're doing, that acceptance of the breath as it is. When the breath arises, sometimes you think, oh, why can't the breath be calm? Or why can't the breath be clearer? Right? Have a sense of metta to the mind that observes and the breath that is observed. Does that make sense, everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Otokata metta, buddhanusati, asubha, marnanusati. Any questions? Hari. Emanang, I will leave you all there, everyone. And I will see you next week. Yes, we will do the meditation next week, Sunday. And what do we do over Christmas? Are you all celebrating Christmas? Let me see. So that would be the 25th. Christmas week starts from the 23rd and then the New Year. Do you all want a little break through that period? You all have family coming and all of that? Hello, everyone. It seems no one wants a break. Okay, that's fine then. But let's
You can take the questions, Bhante, what the problems we are having, so those one can be resolved, please.
Which questions?
No, the ones which this week, you mentioned that if you have any questions.
Yes, but we are going to be discussing those questions then on the 20th Thursday, which is the 21st. Right? Okay. 21st. So then 21st and then Christmas happens 24th. So 24th Sunday, right? And then the 25th is the Dhammasangani class and the 28th is going to be the Thursday. I think 28th we can anyways do neither. 28th, it is neither here nor there, the Thursday class. 28th of December.
It's a Thursday, is it?
It's a Thursday. It's a Thursday. So, can you people talk, please? Because
I haven't got a calendar. Shall I bring a calendar?
A break is good, I think. The visitors coming and we'll be sort of busy. I will be busy. So I personally,
Bhante, 24th Sunday,
24
25 and
Sunday.
26 if we take a break because we'll get
20, yeah, 24th is Christmas Eve. So let's take a break
Yeah.
on that day, right?
Yes.
And then so
and the
Christmas,
Christmas day.
yeah, 24th and 25th, Christmas Day, we'll
Yeah.
take a break, right? And then I think Thursday, 28th, Thursday, up until New Year,
Yes.
because first is Monday.
But normally you give a break, don't you? Every other year, I mean. You have
I
been doing.
I do. I have. Okay. Shall we then do a break? Okay. So then 24th අපි ඒත් මේ පළවෙනිදා මොනවාරි කරමු. මේ පළවෙනිදා මේ ජනවාරි පළවෙනිදා පැයකට හරි right පොඩි භාවනාවක් හරි මොකක් හරි එකක් අපි කරමු නේද?
Yeah, yeah.
පටන් ගන්න ධර්මයේත් එක්ක
අවුරුද්ද පටන් ගන්න.
January 1st is good.
ජනවාරි පළවෙනිදා
First.
පැය විතර පැයකමාරක් භාවනාවක් හරි නේද?
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday. It's a Monday.
We normally go to the temple in the morning, Bante. I go to the temple, I don't know other people.
Yes.
Yeah.
May
Yes.
Maybe in the afternoon.
we will discuss probably in the afternoon or
Yeah, please.
not late afternoon because I guess you all will have evening dinners and all of that happening as well on the 1st, isn't it? So okay, we'll put on the chat and see what the others say as well. All right, everyone, I will leave you there and take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Bante.
Everyone Saranai Bante.